Hey guys, Austin back again with another long play video. It's actually been a while since I've done one of these. I believe the last one I did was the Firepower 2000 long play a couple months ago. And this is Astyanax for the 8-bit Nintendo, or you can call it Astyanax or Astyanax. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. It doesn't really tell you anywhere in the instruction manual how to pronounce the guy's name, which Astyanax is the main character, which you see right there. And yeah. This is actually kind of an underrated game in my opinion. I'm not going to say it's a AAA quality game, you know, like Mega Man or Contra or something like that, but I think it's still a pretty cool game, and it's cheap if you've ever been curious about this game, and it won't break the bank to try it out. But this was a game I actually played a lot as a kid. It was actually one of those games I actually saved up money for and bought with my own money. It was one of the earliest games I bought with my own money. As a kid, and I think it only cost $10. It was in like the budget bin, but yeah, needless to say, I played it quite a bit as a kid because, you know, I bought it. So yeah, it's very loosely based off the arcade game of the same name, as far as I can tell. Now, I don't know if it's actually based on the arcade game, or if Jalico just decided to give it the same name, or maybe they tried porting the arcade game to the 8-bit Nintendo and we're like, wow, yeah, we're definitely not going to be able to do this. Yeah, this has similarities to it. If you've never checked that out, you can try it out in MAME. But the best I can kind of compare this to is Legendary Axe on the TurboGrafx 16. If you've played Legendary Axe and you've never played this game, once you see this game in action, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, anyways, here we go. I've hit the start. Now this game, as you can tell, it has cutscenes in between each stage, and what I'm going to do is let each cutscene roll out as I play through the game. I mean, I'm actually not playing right now. I'm actually doing a voiceover separately. This footage was actually taken probably about 6 months ago. I actually took this footage originally just for a review, not on. Well, my intention was to do a review of this game, and I just couldn't get the script down. It just wasn't feeling right. So I decided to keep the footage around for a long play, because what I did here is I'm pretty sure I beat the game without dying. If I do die, then I definitely do it without continuing. So, but I'm pretty sure I actually do it without dying. So, but yeah. I kind of got off on a little tangent there. I was going to talk about something else, but I completely forgot. Damn, short-term memory. Anyways, yeah, like I said, it's got cutscenes in between. They're really not very good, honestly, and you know, it was in that period of games where some Nintendo games are trying to be kind of like Ninja Gaiden. They have story segments between stages, and you know, some of them were able to pull it off pretty well, like I don't know, like Vice Project Doom or something like that, but Astyanax, not really. That doesn't really bring the game down in any sense, really. I mean, I guess as an overall whole, it probably does a little bit, but thankfully you can skip through the stories just like you can in Ninja Gaiden. So, I mean, if you're just all about the gameplay, it's still, I think, a great action platformer. So basically, you're this kid, Astyanax. He, you know, he's a high school kid, and magically he gets zapped into this other realm. This fairy chick, I think her name's Cutie, she gives you an axe, and then sends you on your way. Basically says you gotta go kill this guy and defeat all these monsters, and it sounds really bad and all that kind of stuff, and I'd hate to get zapped into an alternate universe like this if I was a kid. It sounds kind of freaky, actually, but it actually makes for a decent platformer, surprisingly. And no, that's not because of the story. You'll see what I mean once we get in here. If you haven't played this game before, I think Astyanax does some things that a lot of other Nintendo games don't do. For instance, as you see right here, your character's really big. He's pretty large for a Nintendo game. All the enemies are pretty large as well. The sprites are pretty, well, large. It's good. It's different than what you normally find in other Nintendo games. Your character Astyanax, he kind of runs a little bit stiff. going left and right, but that's just kind of, you know, how the game plays. You can actually use that to your advantage and just play safe, which is what I do in this this playthrough, and you'll see. Some people say this game's pretty difficult, but really it's all about patience. It's not about rushing your way through. And if you play it like that, if you play with patience, it's actually not a very difficult game at all, as you can see, or as you will see. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I beat this game without dying. And if you play like I do, you shouldn't have too much problem either. Just don't go apeshit on everything that comes your way. Just, you know, like the little blue blobs that are higher up on the screen than I am, just let them fly over you, you know, just like I'm doing right there. So there's lots of stuff you can just let pass by. Most stages have little mini bosses, and this is this right here. Some stages, after you defeat the mini boss, you go on to the next stage. Other stages, you'll go to the main boss, which is what happens right here in this first level. Now, the main boss has its own black screen, black background, and the main bosses are always a lot larger than anything else you see in the game. Generally, these bosses are really easy, though. It's, yeah, the most difficult, the highest, well, God, I'm just losing my mind here. The hardest parts of the game are probably the stages. Some of the stages later on in the game can get a little bit tricky, admittedly. The first few stages in the game are pretty easy, without a doubt. And just beating up on him. Yeah, this guy is actually kind of funny. When you hit him, he bounces back, but if you tap him just right as he lands, he'll just bounce right back up, so you can kind of like trap him there in the corner. If you haven't played this game before, one thing you might have noticed is the little yellow power meter that keeps going up and down on the bottom of the screen. And this meter actually, whenever you attack, the meter drains back down to 0, and then it recharges until you attack again. You collect power-ups throughout the game that will extend that meter, and by the end of the game it'll go full screen. The higher it gets, and basically the higher it gets, the stronger you'll attack if you let it sit and charge. And you can play either way, really. You could be the kind of player that just mashes the button and attacks as fast as you can, and that works, but for me, I found that it's actually better to let it sit and charge, because there are a lot of enemies, bigger enemies, that will take a lot of, you know, short swipe, you know, quick hits, but they'll die in one hit with a fully charged meter. So awkward silence with an even more awkward story. So here we are on stage 2. Now from this point on, stages or acts or chapters or whatever you want to call them, I don't know what they call them in this game. There will be more of them. For instance, this one, I think it goes up to stage 1, 2. Other levels in the game, I think, will go up to like 1, 3. So you'll have multiple action stages like this before you get to the full black background boss. So each area in the game gets longer and longer. And there's a weapon power-up. I had actually already gotten one on the first stage, and this is the third weapon. Now you get 3 weapons in the game. It's you get the axe, you've got like the wand or the scepter or something like that, which is the weakest of the 3 weapons, and they give it to you second, ironically. And then you get the sword, which is the best weapon in the game. And provided you don't die, you won't go back a level in weapons, in weapon power. So once you get the sword, it's the game's a little bit easier. It's much stronger, especially once you charge your meter up all the way. Now this guy, when you hit him, he pops out of the ground and swipes at you, so what you can do is just kind of control him, move back, let him do his thing, and then move back in and hit him. And if you charge your meter each time, it'll go pretty quickly. See, yeah, round 2-1. The game's divided into rounds. So now this is the first level in the game where you go vertically instead of horizontally. And this is kind of cool. This helps mix things up a little bit. And these vertical stages usually aren't very difficult. Well, again, like I said, so long as you play it safe, you play it slow, you play it cautiously, they're not very difficult. So, Astyanax, he actually has quite a bit of reach with his weapons. It's you know, just a little past his sword's length when his sword is out in front of him, and it's pretty decent length. And thanks to the hitboxes, it's actually your sword actually reaches out farther than it does visually on the screen because the hitbox is so large on it. And you can actually see on this boss right here, I was hitting him even though the sword wasn't touching him. So you can also try to take advantage of that to again just play things a little bit safer. Now this boss, she comes out, you have to hit her in the little orb on the front of her, and you duck by doing that. And you can alternate while you're still ducking. You don't have to get back up and switch sides. But yeah, after you hit her a few times, she goes off to the other side. Pretty repetitive, pretty monotonous, pretty easy. Just don't get hit by her hands, because that'll hurt you. Now, a couple of things I haven't talked about yet is down on the bottom hand corner, or not bottom hand corner, the bottom of the screen is you have hearts, which is your life, and then you have the other little swirly things, and that's your magic. Now, you have 3 different spells in this game. You have a fire spell, which you've already seen me use. It basically clears the screen of all enemies. And it's my preferred spell in this game. It takes up the most amount of magic points. We'll just call them that. But it does the most damage. It's the most useful, in my opinion. Another one you can use is sort of like a Castlevania-style stopwatch. It doesn't look like a stopwatch, but it basically does the same thing. Everything on the screen pauses for a few moments. Kind of useful. It uses up a smaller amount of magic points. And then you have the lightning spell, which is basically the same thing as the fire spell. It does damage to everything on the screens, except it's not nearly as powerful. It takes up less magic points, but again, it's not as powerful. The thing I like about the fire spell is that it's really powerful, and there are some parts in the game where you gotta make a jump, and say the next platform is a little bit lower than you. So, but they'll put an enemy on that platform, so you can either jump and get hit by the enemy and have a good chance, or a very likely chance, of falling down into the hole next to it. Or you can try to attack them, but in this case right here, where you see the platform's lower than the higher platform I jumped from, you won't be able to attack the enemy, depending. Usually, they'll put, like those guys right there, the guys that sort of rise out of the ground, they're a little bit taller. You might be able to still hit them with your sword, but the little guys that come out of the ground, they're not as tall, and they shoot out like the circular balls. You won't be able to hit them, so it's either jump and get hit, probably fall into a hole, or use your fire spell and just destroy them completely to clear the path. Now, if you use the lightning spell, it probably won't kill them, so you've got to use it multiple times, but if you've already used your magic, you might have run out, and so you might screw yourself. With the fire spell, I only use it really when I absolutely need to, and on most stages, if I use it, it's just once, maybe twice a level. So I use it as like an absolute last resort, or in those situations where I can't pass and I might fall down a hole. If I jump and try to pass an enemy or land on them and try to kill him while I'm still slightly invincible. Now obviously, like most Nintendo games, you do have a limited amount of lives, and I'm up to 4 right now. I think by the end of the game I have like 6 or 7 or something like that. You get extra lives for points and so forth, so the better you play, the longer you go, the more extra lives you'll get. And I do believe you get points based on how high your life is and how high your magic points are by the time you finish the stage. So here we go, another vertical scrolling stage. Again, like I said, they're not very difficult. They're kind of cool though. I like them. Now, as you saw back there, you can actually, when you jump, you can tap jump to jump just a little bit and not jump as high. And that little part up there is to get to that canister. I had to jump just a tiny bit. Because if you jump all the way up, you actually get stuck in the ceiling, kind of like you do in Castlevania. Here's another boss, another main boss. He's not too bad either. You just basically shoot his covering open, and then you shoot his face. Not shoot, you attack. This is not a shooting game. And then, as you can see there, once you break it open, he starts flying around the screen. And this isn't very hard either. Again, just take your time. Don't do anything too stupid, and you can destroy those bubbles as well. Alright, so how far along are we? Well, we're not quite halfway through in terms of the length of the entire video. We're about 2/3 through. If you skip through all the story, you can pretty much, I think, finish this game in about 20 minutes. Maybe 25. I'm thinking more along 20. And like I said, it's been about a half year since I've actually played this. But, yeah, letting the story sit through, it definitely takes a lot longer. It's going to take you about 50 minutes to get through the entire game if you watch every piece of story there is, which is what we're doing here. But like I said, if you just run through the game, it should only take you about 20 minutes to get through it. Now, for you guys watching on YouTube, I might even put markers within the description so you can just skip past all the story. I'll put markers at the beginning of each stage so you can just skip through each stage, or go to a specific stage actually if you want, and just watch how I do it. If there's a specific stage that gives you problems, then you can just skip right to it. Alright, this is Marshy. Now this is actually probably the most difficult stage in the game for me. This is where the game really starts to ramp up in difficulty. And part of that is due to these fucking creatures of the Black Lagoon-like fuckers that just keep popping up. Those fishmen or fish enemies, whatever, fish bastards, whatever you want to call them. They're not cool. They can be a little difficult. A little tricky. They can swim along the ground like that and then just pop out. Other times they're, you know, as you've already seen already, they are at you know, various pits and they'll pop out. And so you really got to take your time on this stage because you never know when they're gonna pop out. It's and you'll see what I mean as I get farther into it. Right here, there's probably gonna be one that pops out. aside from him just kind of coming off the back of the screen. Now, when they come out like that, they also attack occasionally. And what I found is that if you sit back a little bit farther on the platform, they won't touch you, which is really important because they'll knock you back and knock you down into the hole if they do touch you, and it's very tricky. And you can see I'm almost dead, but I think this is a life thing right here. Oh no, it's Cutie. Yeah, occasionally you run into her if you're fully powered up, and she can, I guess, refresh your spell power as well as, you know, upgrade your weapon if you didn't have it upgraded already. So, but yeah, those guys, those fish guys that pop out, they're pretty annoying. You got to be really careful on the stage because, like I said, and like you see, there's lots of, you know, endless pits and swamp or whatever down below. So if you fall down, you die. There's no getting out of that. And when you die in this game, you go right back to the beginning of the stage. That's one thing I forgot to mention. And one thing you actually won't see, because like I said, I don't die. Or if I do, it's probably only once. I haven't yet. But yeah, you go back to the very beginning of the stage whenever you die in this game. So again, you got to be careful if you don't want that to happen. And one thing you'll notice in this game is that they do color palette swaps on a lot of enemies in order to get other enemies. This is usually kind of like a bad thing in a lot of games, but in this game it's not too bad because the enemies that are, you know, palette swapped, they're actually, they usually do more, they're more difficult. So, you know, the difficulty increases. It's not like you are attacking the exact same enemy throughout the entire game. They have some of the similar traits, like those skeletons they can block with their swords and you can't do any damage to them, but yeah, they do more. Like he was shooting around a lot more projectiles, so you gotta be a little more careful when you fight him. It's the same thing with the fish guys that pop out of the ground. They do palette swaps on them and they're a little more difficult. For instance, they'll shoot out spears much more quickly and more often than they did on the last stage. So again, just take your time. As you can see, that's basically what I'm doing. And I'm just constantly moving too. Like the little floating things, I'm not even bothering with them until they get close to me. I'm just continuously pushing on through the stage. And, you know, right there, I just ducked it. And that's an instance where I use my magic in order to progress without too much trouble, because of those guys that pop out of the ground. Now those blue things that pop out of those canisters sometimes, those actually give you health. Now, I don't remember which color does what, but there's two different kinds. One color only gives you between 3 or 5 blocks, maybe a little bit more, maybe they give you like 6 or 7, but the other kind gives you an entire life bar back. And the game is actually pretty generous with those, actually, or generous to me anyways. I feel it's generous. They give you probably at least 1 per stage. So, I mean, if you're playing kind of careful like me and you're not really getting hit, you know, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a full life bar so long as you're playing well. And having a full life bar means you're probably gonna survive, at least if you get to the boss, because the bosses aren't really that difficult. Yeah, the red ones only give you 3. It's the blue ones that give you all of your life back. Now this guy disappears, kind of like Zelda 2 style. And he stops time on you, apparently, so when he does that, you're pretty much bound to get hit by him. so long as you've got a full life bar when you get here and you're swiping away, you're pretty much guaranteed to beat him. Kind of like the boss in Ninja Gaiden. I forgot his name, but it's right before the last stage. Is when you're in the Golden Tower Palace, or on the outskirts of the last level. When you're traveling up the temple or something like that, you fight that boss who is guaranteed to hit you. He takes away like 3 or 4 life bar or life pellets at a time. But as long as you keep attacking him, you know, you beat him out to the end. This guy wasn't very tricky at all, or that guy wasn't very tricky at all. Just, you know, swipe at the little plant canisters he throws out. Not too difficult at all, and he dies or goes down pretty quickly. This one is definitely taking some cues from Ninja Gaiden. Except the castles in Ninja Gaiden, they weren't quite as generous to just give you a path going straight to them. These guys have it easy in comparison. So this stage also has a lot of fish guys that pop out, so again you got to be careful, kind of like the marshy stage. And these guys will actually come out, and I think they'll bounce along the ground, so they can be a little bit trickier to attack. And I'm doing really poorly trying to attack those floating eyeballs. Again, they're not too bad either, but they do bounce all over the place, so you just kind of like track them. Whoa. And be smart about when you attack them. Just wait for them to kind of come down a little bit, and then you can jump at them. See, like I was saying earlier, you also want to stand back a little bit on the platforms, because if you're too close, the fish guys will hit you on their way up, which will drain your life pretty quickly, because there's a lot of them in this stage. And I do recommend sitting back and charging your sword, just kind of like I'm doing, because you can kill those guys in one hit usually with a fully charged sword. If you don't have your sword charged up all the way, they're a little more difficult because they take a lot more hits. There shouldn't be too much longer to go. The longest part is watching all the story. I mean, this is actually very close to the end of the game, and I'm looking on my video, and I still have about or at least a third of the way to go, and that's all basically story from what I can tell. This is actually pretty close to the end of the game. Like I said, the game itself isn't really all that long. It's typical for an action platformer of the NES days. I mean, Ninja Gaiden could take 10 minutes if you're good at it and you beat it without dying. Ninja Gaiden 2, same thing. You know, Ninja Gaiden 3, maybe a tiny bit longer, maybe 15-20 minutes tops. So
This was pretty much, you know, par for the course back in the day. Have well, this was probably a moderate-sized game back then, made to feel even longer thanks to all the story elements thrown between. So, yeah, after this you go into what it's called, I guess they call it like the maze or something like that. And actually, I think Astyanax dies here, and Cutie, or no, he doesn't die. He gets like a spell cast on him or something, and he's turning to stone. But your fairy chick, Cutie, she sacrifices herself to save you, and then you go on and, you know, you kick some ass and finish the game. But this next part of the game is it's a little bit tricky if you've never gone to it before. It's actually, it is kind of a maze, and but you can get through it your first try. And I'll show you how to do that here, or I'll explain that as I play. But yeah, if you've never gotten here before, you might actually wander back and forth between different rooms in this maze-like castle area for a while. But really, once you know how to do it, it's really easy. Which is good, because I really hate maze puzzles in like platformers and so forth in these kinds of games, basically. Oh shit. Sorry about that. My alarm clock went off. So you have these black doors here. It's you have to hold up on them, and then you'll sort of teleport through them. Now the trick here is you'll notice there's various icons at the top of each door. Now what you want to do is you want to go through the door that has a skeleton pop up in front of it. That's the correct door. Now you could go up through any of these doors, but you always want to go up through the one that has the skeleton in it. And then that'll push you forward through the stage. Me personally, I hate having to explore when I don't have to, or when it's not necessary. You know, in a game like this where it's just point A to point B, you know, it's about fighting the enemies and the bosses. I really don't like having to figure out puzzles like this. So, but I figured this one out pretty easily when I was a kid, though. It's not too difficult. You go through the door that has the skeleton pop up right in front of it. And then it progresses you through the little maze area, or the castle, or whatever you want to call it. They describe it as a maze in the story, I'm pretty sure. You probably know better than I do at this point, because I didn't even watch the story as the video was going through just these last few moments. Now I admit that this isn't probably the most entertaining long play I've done, because just the nature of the game. It's a pretty straightforward game. It's pretty simplistic. There are some tricks I'm able to tell you, at least that I use in order to progress through the game. But really, once you get those down, it's really not that bad of a game. It's not too difficult, and most of the stages are pretty much, you know, identical. I mean, not really identical, but they're very similar. I mean, there's only so much I can talk about in this game, but if you have played this before, but you haven't, say, played TurboGrafx 16, I recommend you check out the TurboGrafx and check out Legendary Axe, because it's the same kind of game. You have the same kind of power meter at the bottom, and so forth. But the game is actually, I'd say it's a lot better than this game. It's good. There's a lot more to it. There's the stages are a little more interesting. It's a little more difficult. There's, you know, I highly recommend checking it out if you're into, or if you enjoy Astyanax at all. I really enjoy Astyanax. I think it's a great game, but Legendary Axe is definitely better over on the TurboGrafx. Now, also, like I was saying in the very beginning of the video, this is based off the arcade game Astyanax. At least I think it is. I I haven't done any research on it right now. I can't remember which one came first now when I think about it, whether it was the NES one or the arcade one. Pretty sure it was the arcade one though. But the arcade one's a lot faster, much like Legendary Axe on the TurboGrafx, but it is very, very arcade style. There are a lot more enemies, and it's a lot more difficult. But that was kind of par for the course for arcade games in the late 80s, early 90s. What I'll probably do is actually add some footage on top of this video for things like the arcade game Astyanax and so forth, and maybe I'll show some box art to Legendary Axe or something like that. Maybe some screenshots, because I actually don't have that game right now, so I can't get you any footage. But and actually, come to think of it, for Astyanax, the arcade game, I might not even get footage. I'll probably just slap some screenshots on it as well, just so you can see what it looks like. Nothing too crazy. Just to kind of mix things up in these long plays. I haven't actually done that in a long play video before. You know, having screenshots fade through and stuff like that. So I just started recently doing that with my casual gameplay and talk videos, the ones where I just basically talk and play a game at the same time. They're not really reviews, but I do give my opinions. It's more or less showing the game, talking how it plays, and so forth. Kind of like a long play, but there's more opinion involved, usually. My long play videos are typically more walkthrough oriented, I guess, sort of. I usually give my opinions as well, and I reminisce about the game and, you know, stuff like that, but it's more about my tricks and tips and stuff like that, and just showing you from start to finish what the game is like. Now this game, they regurgitate so many of the same graphics in the story segments that the story segments themselves get really old. Like, by the end of the game, you've seen Astyanax's face the exact same way so many times. You've seen him kneel down the same way so many times. The same with his fairy chick, Cutie. It's just, the story part in this game might have actually been better and I guess more respectful if they, you know, if the text actually scrolled through quicker, and if they actually, well, if they drew more frames, you know, instead of regurgitating the same couple camera shots, it's the exact same thing throughout the entire game, and they could have done better too by adding backgrounds to the cutscenes and so forth, just like they did in the early parts of the game, the very intro. You know, Astyanax is walking along the bridge and there's a full background. It's like they probably should have done that for every cutscene in the game, but I don't know if maybe it was rushed or maybe they just felt it wasn't necessary. But you know, the story part is really what brings the game down, in my opinion. Some people will just say Astyanax is just a shitty game to begin with. Some people just don't like this game. They think it's really you know, bottom of the shelf kind of material for the 8-bit Nintendo, but I don't feel that. I feel it's a fun game once you learn how to play it. It's definitely not as like creative as some other of the classics on the system. You know, for instance, you know, the game just gets pretty repetitive, but with, you know, just palette swaps and stuff like that. Very similar level designs in each stage. But the game, it's still fun because there's usually a lot going on. It's not a super easy game. You're definitely not going to beat it on your first try if you've never played it before. But if you practice it, then you should be able to get through it without too much trouble. So that little rant aside, this is actually the very final area of the game. You're going up this vertical tower, and you're basically fighting all the mini-bosses again, which is pretty cool. I actually like that. That's a good idea. Kind of Mega Man style, but it does it in its own way. I like the elevator that takes you up. That's pretty cool. Now this, that dude, I don't know if there's any way to dodge his lightning attack that comes down. I don't think I've ever dodged it, so you're gonna get hit. Pretty much. If there's a way to dodge it, you know, post a comment below or something and tell me. Hell, point me to a video that has someone dodging it, if it's possible. Alright, almost there. Got about 10 more minutes to go, and then this video is done. Well, that wasn't that difficult. Now this is the final boss as far as I know. He's not too difficult. What you have to do is hit him in the chest. However, his chest, it closes up so you can't hit his weak point. As he progresses on through colors, he has other abilities. For instance, his mouth will open and he'll basically cast a stopwatch or a stop spell, like your own stopwatch sort of thing, and that can make things a little tricky. But aside from that, that's really it. There's not too much else to him. He's actually a a fairly tame final boss, if you ask me. Now, if there's any point where I'm not moving, it's because he's cast his stop spell. So there we have it. That's it. Yeah, kind of an underwhelming last boss. And that's it. You know, the ending comes, the credits roll. That is basically it. I'll let this roll out, and then that'll pretty much be the end of this long play video. I apologize if this one wasn't quite as interesting as my other long plays, but I guess it's the nature of it because of this game. There's not, I mean, like I mentioned just not too long ago, most of the game is pretty much the same all the way through. It's just, you know, the background's changed, the designs changed slightly, like with the vertical stages. The side-scrolling stages or the horizontal stages really aren't that different from one another. You just gotta watch out for the enemy placement and so forth. And if you're thinking about playing this game, hopefully after watching this video, you won't have such a hard time getting through some of those stages, like the marshy stage where all the fish guys pop out. So, like I was saying, I mean, this game is really cheap. It's a very, very common 8-bit Nintendo game. It only costs you a couple bucks, maybe $2, $3 tops to buy it. I think it's definitely worth it. It's definitely I think it's one of the better 8-bit Nintendo games you can get for that price. Most of the better 8-bit Nintendo games have gone up in price in years, you know, like Contra and Castlevania and all that kind of stuff. Usually cost a little bit more. Contra being around like the $15 range. So for $2 or $3, Astyanax is definitely worth it. I think it's a great game, especially for that price. Like you've seen, it's not the most inspired game in a sense. Like I said, you know, palette swaps, you know, repetitive level layout and stuff like that. But there is enough going on in each stage to keep things interesting and to keep you on your toes. That's the important thing. There's if you don't play well, there's technically death around every corner. There's lots of endless pits and so forth. So you got to be careful in this game. You can't just rush right through it, like I mentioned in the very beginning of the video. You've really got to take your time with it if you'd actually like to succeed and get through it without too much trouble. And if you want to say one credit clear it, like I just did here. I was pretty sure I did it without dying, but like I said, because I recorded this footage about 6 months ago, I'm kind of doing this commentary well after the fact. I've actually done a lot since then. I've done a lot of full-on videos, casual videos, you know, just a lot of random stuff, so this one was kind of on the back burner for a long time. But yeah, that's it. This is the ending screen, and that's it, guys. So I appreciate you watching. If you got this far, leave a comment or something. Let me know you got here. And you know, thanks for watching again. Take it easy. I'll try to be back with another long play in the near future. I don't have any more long plays planned. So maybe we'll have to slap one together, go practice a game and beat it without dying or continuing. Alright guys, well again, I'm Austin. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I'm out. Catch you soon.